while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire. Suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
would like to welcome all the attendees and faculty members to today's webinar on execution, traction, and scale. Our esteemed speaker for the session is Mr. Rajeev Roy. Mr. Rajeev is an expert and a firm advocate of entrepreneurship and innovation. Currently, he is a professor at XLRI Jamshedpur and a startup mentor. He has actively been working on various entrepreneurship development activities with governments and educational institutions. Additionally, he is associated with incubators and accelerators spread across North and South America and Asia as well. He has been doing an admirable job in furthering the startup ecosystem and is here today to guide us with execution, traction, and scale. We are honored to have you with us, sir. Before we begin, there's a small request to the participants to keep their mics on mute, and if they have any questions, they can drop them in the chat box. So without taking much of your time, I would request Mr. Rajeev to take over. We're all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhumika. It was a very overwhelming introduction. I just want to say that I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and currently I try to teach entrepreneurship. I firmly believe that entrepreneurship, like a lot of other skills, can be taught, and I've been trying to do that for the past 15 years or so. And that's a conversation we can have at another time. But for now, let's talk about what we are to talk about today, which is about execution, traction, and scale. Before we get into the conversation, I would like to have a little bit of a feel of who we have over here in terms of in the class. So, Drashti, can you just help me with a small little audience poll, the first one that we have set up? If you can just show it to the audience, I just would want a short click from you identifying which group you fall into.
Either.
Thanks. Yes.
Rajeev, do let me know when you are
whichever one you think describes you well. Yep, I'll do that. So whichever one you think describes you well, click on that. So are you already an entrepreneur? Are you the stage where you have an idea or maybe even a prototype and you plan on starting soon? No plans right now, but you very much know that in the future you're going to be an entrepreneur. And yes, I mean, it's perfectly fine if you have no plans to be an entrepreneur. You may have a lot of fun, but it's no problem at all. Okay. Drashti, can we have the results? Can we see how many of... You can share the results with the class itself. Okay. So 8% over here are already entrepreneurs. Good to have you over here, and a big salam from all of us. And some of you have an idea and you will start soon. Very much all the best to you. Looking forward to seeing you join the ranks of the brave and the stupid very soon. No plans right now, but you would like to be an entrepreneur is what describes the majority of you, 79%. And looking forward to engaging with you in the future, maybe lots of cups of tea, maybe lots of other brainwashing that we plan on doing. And finally, we'll find out some way of getting you to make the mistake of becoming an entrepreneur. Then we have 5% very wise people. They don't want to be an entrepreneur. They'll allow others to have fun, and they will have more fun by sitting on the sidelines and probably doing more other significant things in life. Good. So we have an idea now. So thank you, Drashti. We will go forward with the rest of the session that we have planned over here. Okay. So if you could just enable me sharing the screen, I would just share a little bit of a small presentation I have with me. In case that is proving to be difficult, you can make me a co-host. I think as a co-host, I'll be able to share the screen.
I've made you the co-host.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we have a little bit of I have a small bit of a presentation over here. This is just to make sure that I keep on the right track. This presentation is probably more for me than for you. It is just to make sure that I don't start getting distracted by all the examples and the things that I'm talking about, and I end up talking about things that I initially not planned on doing. Okay, so this is about traction, execution, and scale. So before I get into what exactly traction is, what exactly execution is, and how do you end up getting the scale that I'm sure all of us want as entrepreneurs, I want to show you a few examples. I want to show you a few examples of ideas that have actually got traction or have got scale, and I want to describe exactly what has happened with those particular ideas. I will ask you a couple of questions when it's here. So, any of you know what this product is all about? If any of you know, you can put it in the chat box so that I can have a look at what exactly you know about the product. Any of you have heard about the mirror? No? Okay. Yes, Atman was probably saying something. You can say, or you can just put it in the chat box. I can just. Okay, so it is not an ordinary mirror that we are talking about over here. That thing you see on the wall is actually a aid to your exercise. The objective over here is to replace the personal trainer. What happens as a result of this particular one is it gives you feedback, whether your form is right, whether you are doing it well, whether your speed is right, whether you're moving in the right manner, and it can help you doing a bunch of exercises. It can normal calisthenics, Pilates, yoga. It has a lot of forms that it can actually help you with. And this is a recent innovation. It was a company, it was a startup which started off with this. They went to the market and it ended up costing the customer about $3,000. The $3,000 is a pretty stiff price, but it's not all that much a stiff price. Yes, it is. Yes, Riju, you're right. It's a lot of things. Basically, a personal trainer. So $3,000 was a little bit on the higher side. Probably they were not able to get as much of sales, but it's not a bad product. What are the technologies it leverages on? Primarily, a lot of visual technologies, optical technologies that have come out. And of course, AI is very evident in what it does. So AI is the base technology that I've used on. They were able to sell their company to a company called Lululemon. Lululemon is the maker of yoga pants and is probably one of the world's largest makers of yoga pants right now. So they sold the company to Lululemon a few months back for a figure of $800 million. One of the things which was very amazing about this product is they themselves did not go ahead with any specific technological innovation. What they did over here is they just took all the innovations that were there and put it together in a product which was what the market wanted, right? So Nidhi, you have a question? If you have a question, you can directly put it on the chat box. I'll try to answer it. Thank you, Darshni. Okay, now the other thing that I'm going to show you is Thor ET-One. A very nice, interesting name. And this is the product. Looks nice, doesn't it? It is actually a truck. It is a long which has got the ability to carry a huge load. So what is special about it? What do you think is special about it? Other than the fact that it's probably the best looking truck I've seen in my life, what else is good about it? Anything else? Anything else? Yes, Aditya, this shape is good. I really like it. Musi, you are almost close to it. It's not yet self-driving, but that's one of the things they're working on right now. It's moves fast with heavy load also. Yes, to some extent you are right, but it sort of matches the other trucks in its class as far as its load carrying capacity is concerned. This is not exactly what sets it apart. This is electric powered. Jevin, you are absolutely right. So this is an electric powered truck. A nice way of describing it is that it is a Tesla as far as trucks are concerned. Of course, Tesla also has its plans of getting into the truck field. There are a lot of other people who also have plans of getting into the truck field. Now, what these guys have done is there are many others who are at a similar stage of development as far as the product is concerned. Maybe they were probably half a step ahead than the others. Even Tesla has a product which they have lined up. GM has a product which they have lined up. There are a lot of people with a product lined up, but Thor ET-One decided to go ahead and launch the product. So, a broad specification of the product. It has a load carrying capacity which is similar to that of other trucks of its size. I think 60 tons is what it can take with ease. It has a range. Electric vehicles, the problem is the range. So you go a certain distance and you have to recharge the battery. So this vehicle has a range of around 300 miles, which translates into a little more than 500 kilometers. The third thing which is interesting, rather around 500 kilometers. The third thing which is interesting over here is the price. It is priced expensive, in excess of $150,000, but it is not all that very expensive when you consider the amount of money they're going to save from gasoline. In fact, if you total it up for a period of about 3 to 5 years, with current efficiencies and current prices of gasoline, they are likely to save about 30% of the total costs of running the vehicle for 3 years. And added bonus is, this is actually far more comfortable. So if you have sat in a big truck, I mean, if you sit in a big truck, even a small one which is carrying about 10 tons of load, see, it vibrates a lot. It feels as if you're sitting in an auto which is not able to move very fast. It just vibrates a lot, and it can actually ruin your posture. It can actually affect your spine a lot. And imagine the drivers are sitting in the truck for something like 10, 15 hours a day. So it really ruins the health on various fronts. This is an electric engine. One of the features of an electric engine is the fact that it is quiet. It doesn't vibrate all that much. So what happens as a result, that it's much more comfortable for the drivers. That's the big selling point they have over here also. Now, what have been the disadvantages of this product? They moved a little early. I told you they moved a little early. So they haven't actually got great sales. That is one. Second is, I told you that the range is around 300 miles. It might sound a lot. Tesla has a range of which is about 200 miles. So this is much more than a Tesla. So, but the problem with this range of 300 miles is, when you think about the highways, it's not all that much. 500 kilometers in a country like the US, where this product is launched, is actually not all that much. So they needed a ecosystem of places where you could swap batteries or you could charge the vehicle, and that is currently not there. So that is proving to be a challenge. So once they have customers, what they are doing is they are trying to build facilities which will sort of have a nascent ecosystem around electric batteries along the path where they are trying to sell this product. Now let me show you another one. Icon Vulcan. And this is it. So what is the product over here? Any of you try? What is the product that I'm trying to show you? Anything? Guess. The chairs over here, the lights over here. There's a roof. Yes, there you are getting it right. This is a 3D printed house. So Icon is the company and Vulcan is the product they have over here. So this is an example of one of the early commercially viable 3D printed houses. Now we have 3D printers building multi-story buildings in China. Again, they came out with the product as soon as they thought that there was a possibility of commercial viability with 3D printed houses. Yes, Harsh, you have also got it right. What happens in a 3D printed house is, if you've seen a 3D printer, of course, most of you would have seen a 3D printer. So how it works is it just layers it up, right? So other than the windows and the doors that you see over here, all of it is 3D printed. The roof was stuck later. The roof is not part of the 3D printed structure. It was stuck later. Now, the interesting thing over here are a few. One, the material. The material over here is a mix of the normal concrete that we use for building. It is mixed with recycled plastic. So as a result of this, the cost comes down a lot. The other thing is, of course, there's a huge labor saving. That is why the cost comes down. But the real clincher over here is the time it takes to complete this structure. Within 72 hours, you will be able to complete this particular structure of a 3D printed house. It's not visible from here, but there are walls inside also. It's not just an outer wall in a single room. There are walls inside, so there are partitions within this entire structure also. This was a prototype which worked very well for low-cost housing in Texas. There were a lot of Gulf states which got interested in the technology, and they have started using the same technology for building houses in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, and in UAE. Similarly, the Chinese have actually taken it forward and done a lot of great things about it. Now, the examples that I've been showing you so far, there's another common theme over here. It is that none of them have actually gone ahead with technological innovations which they can call their own. There's no IP over here. There's no major IP over here involved. It's only small little innovations they have done. They have done it on the basis of existing large scale innovations that have happened and are just trending right now. And they have taken advantage of certain social issues or certain social trends, which made that a business opportunity to go ahead with. Now, I'll show you another one. I'm sure there are a lot of gamers over here. And given the times that we have over here, those who were not into gaming have actually gone back into gaming. So somebody like me, I had stopped gaming. I hadn't played a single game for the last 10, 15 years now. But now with the lockdown, there's very little else to do. One can't go and play football outside. FIFA didn't appeal all that much to me inside. So I have started Dota 2. Dota 2 seems like an interesting game. So I have started on that. This is something I've restarted after a very long time and I'm enjoying it. So I'm sure there are a lot of you who are gamers over here also. I don't think many of you would have heard of something called an Xbox adaptive controller. So this is a product that Xbox, Microsoft has come out with. Xbox, what they have done is they have priced it very low. It's about $100. And what it does is it allows people who are otherwise not having the physical abilities to do justice to the game to somehow or other participate in the game. So let me give you some examples. There are ways in which things are translated to people with sight-based inabilities or those who are visually impaired. They can actually translate visual cues on that from the environment, and it can be coded and sent to them by way of haptic information. So those kind of devices. There are some people who are paralyzed who can actually use the alpha. There are machines which can use the alpha waves coming from the brains to help them negotiate the environment around them. You have seen a lot of wheelchairs, a lot of even stretchers can actually move as a result of a person just looking somewhere or just thinking about it also. So that technology exists. This allows those kind of sensors to be attached to an Xbox. So you will not be able to play the game at full efficiency. I can't imagine somebody is going to get to be part of a Fortnite foursome and then probably kill about 5 people in a game. But still, they will be this Xbox adapter allows them to somehow or other get onto the game and be able to do far more than they would have done if they hadn't been part of this ecosystem. So Xbox adaptive controller. And there's one thing I want to again mention over here. Again, no major technology involved over here. Second important thing I want to state over here is, if you look at the worldwide figure of the number of people who are into gaming, it is not going to be significantly impacted if you include amongst those who have physical abilities and also want to game. It will be a small jump. So it's probably not going to be a huge jump in terms of number of users, but it does give a different manner in which Xbox can be used. So that has been the interesting thing about this, right? Finally, I want to show you an interesting product. Okay. So I was in Ahmedabad for 2 years, and I'm a very strict non-vegetarian. So it was always a problem for me in Ahmedabad. I mean, I actually stopped eating non-vegetarian food when I was in Ahmedabad because vegetarian is just so tasty. You don't feel like going and having the compromise, which is the non-vegetarian food over there. So I was very happy being a vegetarian in Ahmedabad just because of the sheer quality of the vegetarian food that you have over there. And also helped by the fact that the non-vegetarian food was of really bad quality. Even if you cross the bridge and go to the other side, it's not actually good. So this is the impossible pooper. What makes it impossible is the 0% beef over here. So this is a pooper which is trying to mimic beef. So it mimics meat. And when I say mimic, it is mimic on 2 fronts. One front is the taste front. So if you eat this and you are normally someone who's used to consuming that meat, you would not know that there is a huge difference to the taste. The other thing it does is also one of the excuses horrible people like me, the non-vegetarians, have of consuming non-vegetarian food is that the range of proteins you get out of non-vegetarian food is more than what you get out of vegetarian food. Here also that excuse is thrown out of the window. What happens over here is that the profile of protein that you get over here is quite similar to what you get in a non-vegetarian product. So this is a impossible Cooper which was launched. Again, what I want to stress over here is there were some 4 or 5 different companies which were working on all these products that we have discussed over here right now. These were the first to actually come out and showcase their product and go ahead, even without waiting for the entire research and development around the product to get completed. So what these guys did is, we are going to compromise on the quality of the product that we can finally get in front of the customer. We are probably not going to have a support system which we actually want, but still we'll go ahead and do it. The reason we'll go ahead and do it is because we think that we will hit the customer and get to know a lot of information about what exactly the customer wants if we have the product out there. Okay. So I've shown you 5 products. So just one small little thing, Drashti, if you can help me out again and show the other poll, we will have a look at what exactly is the product that they have liked of this lot. So Drashti, can you help me and put on the other poll over here? Yes, so we have 5 products over here, and do tell me which of these are the one that you have liked the most. Yes, very interesting. We will continue with the poll for a little longer. Okay. So, okay, now we are still getting in some of the votes, so I'll not stop the polling. I'll continue with it. Okay. So now let me end the polling and show you the results, which is quite interesting actually. Yes, so the one which has won the most of the votes is the Vulcan icon. 3D printed house, we understand the impact that housing has on this country. The need for housing around us is so high. So that is one thing that comes in over here. There is a technology which is growing in its usage, and there's a social need which is very acutely felt, and it's a combination of the two. Next, the favorite was the Xbox controller. I think many of you understand that it is a product which appeals to a very small section of the crowd, but then it is such a socially important product. That is why I think you think that it is one of the nicer products out there. The third over here is Mirror. You'll see there's a common theme over here, making use of a new technology. Over here, it is AI, and then taking advantage of a emerging social trend. And here it is fitness. So the combination of these two is what gives you Mirror. Very similar to that is what happens with Thor ET-One. You have, again, the electric technology, the new electric technology coming up. And what it is combined with is a logistical problem which we face right now of people having to move from place A to place B. And there's a lot of pollution that goes with it. So how to find a way in which you're not actually going to pollute that particular thing. The one which comes in last was actually the Impossible Hooper, and I was expecting that. I mean, when there is a presentation in a state which is dominated by vegetarians, what is the point? You don't see the point in trying to mimic the taste of any non-vegetarian product. So I completely understand that. I was expecting this to come in the last. But here there is a growing You can say there's a growing feeling around the world that the people from Gujarat actually got it right about a few hundred years back. There's actually nothing in non-vegetarian food. We should actually all go vegetarian. So vegetarianism and veganism is a growing trend across the world. And again, this is the new biotech revolutions being harnessed to make use of that particular opportunity. So just wanted to share these with you and to tell you exactly what all is going on over here. Okay, so now going on from here, just wanted to again talk about what exactly traction is. There are a lot of definitions of what exactly you can call traction, and traction is basically the way I would like to look at traction is evidence that you're doing something. There are a lot of entrepreneurs I have met who have been in the ideation stage, and when you ask them what your business is all about, they'll talk about being in the stealth mode. They don't want others to know what are there. There are many people who get attracted by the very concept of entrepreneurship, where the idea that they're going to be running a business which is their own, the idea that probably at some point of time they will get a lot of employees, they'll get funded by somebody, the idea that they'll have a large impact on the market. All of these are great ideas, but unless you go ahead and do something, you're actually not move forward. So traction is about making sure, traction is the evidence that you've actually done things. That is what traction is all about. And it actually results from a few questions which can very easily be answered. And that is going to be my focus over here. Whenever I get in touch with a new entrepreneur, I would like to know the level of traction they have before I would think that they are entrepreneurs. Some of the questions that I can ask is, the first question I ask is, have you formed a company? I don't mean to say that have you formed a private limited company. I want to ask whether they have actually got a structure around it. So it can be a partnership firm, it can be a LLP, it can be a private limited company, or in some circumstances it can be a proprietorship also. But I would say things against having a proprietorship. You can start with the proprietorship, but very quickly you have to move out of that. There are reasons for it. I can expand on it, but broadly, a lot of government schemes that you have, a lot of support structures that you have in the country, they are not open to you if you are a proprietorship. So at the least, be a partnership firm and register yourself, so you'll be able to make use of a lot of government schemes that are there around you. And if you want to raise money outside, you want to scale at some point of time, from a partnership, you have to move to being a private limited company, so that you can actually approach other stakeholders, somebody like a financer or angel fund, and get money from them. If you're any other structure, you will not be able to get any organized money. That's the only structure which will allow you to get the money. Even a LLP, a lot of people will suggest that a LLP will be allowed you, but it's actually not. So nobody invests in a LLP.
Sir,
People
OPC
invest in
can be
private.
an option.
Which one? OPC is an option, but you see, OPC, what happens is, for others, one-person company. The idea behind OPC is that you actually bring down your regulatory hassles that you have. But the amount of regulatory hassles which you are bringing down is actually not all that very significant. It's just a minor drop from what you will have with a private limited firm. And the same problem actually remains. Once it comes to getting a stakeholder on board, once it comes to getting an angel on board, OPC again is not a structure which is going to be sustainable. You'll have to change it to a private limited. I have found, and other entrepreneurs have found, that the easiest way out is to have a partnership firm, register the partnership deed, because that allows you to register yourself with DIPP. DIPP allows you to become a recognized startup by the government. And then what you do is, when you decide that you have actually reached enough traction and you want to move ahead, then you convert it into a private limited. OPC you can try, but a lot of people have found that it's actually not of much use to have it as OPC, because the lessening of the burden, if you are a registered partnership, is far more. So the kind of things that you have to submit, the kind of disclosures that you have to get becomes far lesser if you are a registered partnership. Okay. Next question is, do you have the necessary licenses and registrations? If you are going ahead with having a company, you have a PAN number. Let's say you are a registered partnership also, you have a PAN number. But in addition to that, there are a few other things that you also need. You need a TIN number if you have got a volume of transaction. If you have a certain volume of transaction, you also need a GST number. I would not say that you should go in for these at the very beginning, but at some point of time, you would need to go in for that. In many cases, suppose you're operating a specific kind of business, you would need a license. For example, if it is a manufacturing business and there's a pollution involved over here, you actually need a manufacturing license as well as you need a pollution control clearance. If you're operating a food business inside municipal limits, there's usually a food license which is given out by the municipality over there. If you're operating a manufacturing business which is into making food, then you need a FSSAI license. So all of these are there. You figure out which are the ones that you actually need and go ahead for it. It is good if you take these initial steps because you have actually cleared out your house and then you're moving forward. One of the things I'll also recommend, probably not at the very early stage, but at the next stage, and obviously a part of traction, is that you register your brand. You have to register your brand as a trademark. There's a very little expense to it. There are probably some lawyer fees or some filing fees that you have to pay on top of it. But still, I don't foresee a circumstance when you have an expenditure of more than 10,000 rupees. And the minimum you can actually do is about 3,000 rupees. The thing is, if you go ahead with a registration of a brand, it gives you certain rights. It gives you the ability to do some things in a certain way, which you would not be able to do if you did not register it. Somebody can steal your brand after you have done a lot of trouble to build up the brand. One of the industries, and this industry I'm going to talk a little bit about because I have been mentoring a couple of companies in this sector, is when we talk about these things I have in my ear, these earphones, earbuds, over the ear, in your ear, all of those. So all of you know about this company which is currently advertising, which is called Bolt. Right? Boult, I think, is the spelling of it, right? And then it is very close to another name in the same sector, which is probably one of the leading companies as far as the Indian companies are concerned, which is BOAT, BOAT. So there is actually a legal dispute between the two of them, whether Bolt is trying to make use of the name of BOAT or not. And it all suits the other people in this industry. There's Hammer, there's Noise, all of these are doing quite well. And they're very happy that Bolt is facing a lot of problem. And Bolt and Boat are currently fighting it out. So make sure that you have all the necessary trademark related protection also. Those of you who have something you have to protect by way of patent, and many people actually don't have it. So in case you have something that you want to protect by patent, it's a complicated question whether you should actually go in for patent protection or not. But I would suggest think in some ways of going ahead and doing it. Big one. If somebody comes and tells me that they have a product they want to sell, I'll first say, "Theek hai, dikhao. Show me, where is it? What is the product? What does it do?" I want to see a working prototype. I don't want to see you before you have a working prototype. Having been a startup mentor for a long time, it is now jarring on my patience if I see people come in without having a working prototype. Now is gone the stage where you can actually come into somebody with an Excel sheet or a PowerPoint and hope to get a large amount of cooperation from them. Now we are at the stage where Indian entrepreneurs are far more advanced in the traction when they actually go and approach other people in how exactly can they be helped. So one of the questions I'm going to end up asking somebody who comes to me is, do you have your prototype ready? Half the people, or actually much more than half, will tell me, no, sir, we don't have a prototype ready. What we have is a service idea. So we really don't have a prototype. No, that's the wrong answer. Service businesses are much more amenable to a prototype than a product idea. So what is the service prototype? It can just be the website. If you have an e-commerce site, which you have go to Shopify, make a website, go to Wix, get the website, then go to Shopify and make a shop over there. All this is going to cost you about a few thousand rupees and you're done. You have a prototype ready with you. You know what you're wanting to sell. If it is a service area, which is a small little shop that you want to do, suppose, for example, you want to start a chain of stores which are selling savory ice cream, not ice cream which is not sweet. All you have to do is first start the product, the savory ice cream, and figure out a way of actually distributing to a bunch of friends and see what is the response you're getting. Start a Facebook page, see if you're going to get some reactions with it. Start an Instagram account, post some pictures and see what are the reactions over there. Start a website and try to see if you can actually send the product out and sell it to people. So there are a lot of alternatives of what you can do with a service prototype. So just the fact that you have a service is not excuse enough for you not to have a prototype. The idea is that only when you have a prototype will people know that you are serious about the business. Next question, have you done any beta testing? So it's great if you have a prototype. A prototype can be a variety of things. It can just be a wireframe. It can just be a Facebook page. It can probably be also a product made in a 3D printer, which mimics the look and feel of your ultimate product. But what we want is a working prototype, which should be looking the same as well as having the same functionality that your ultimate product is going to have. Now, the next step over here is, have you gone and beta tested? So what is beta testing? Beta testing is your first initial customers who are going to take it on. In all probability, these are customers who are having to at least invest that time, or also they might also be investing their money by actually paying you for the product. So you have to be careful that it is either one of these two that we are looking at, right? Then I asked them, okay, if you've been around for a while, how much money have you made? I don't mean profits. At least show me your revenue figures. How much of product have you sold? Have you actually sold about 30 lakhs worth of product or 40 lakhs worth of product? So what I do is I will not measure an enterprise which has not managed to end up selling 30, 40 lakhs at least of their product or service. And mostly I'll start at that time, but my serious mentoring will only come in after sold about a crore or so. Next is, what are the others saying about you? This is another important step where to ask, have you actually got in touch with other people? Have you got in touch with experts? Have they expressed their opinion on whether you are a great product or a so-and-so product? Has there been any newspaper mention of you? Have there been any articles about you? Have you actually shown your product to somebody to actually tell you whether this product can do well in the market? The feedback that your customers have given you. One of the feedbacks, of course, is whether they buy it or not. Other feedback is, have they responded to your product by putting comments on your Facebook page, your Instagram page? How many people do you have who end up visiting you on Facebook and Instagram? So all those are the traction that we have. So I'm actually looking at figures. I'm actually looking at, you can say, figures which can be used. So I want to tell you about a company over here. As I was mentioning, I work closely with a startup which is into earphones. The company that I work very closely with is called Hammer. Hammer is a small little company which is based out of Panipat. Panipat, we know, is famous for a couple of battles which was fought over there. Right now, it is the center of, it competes with Surat for being the center of the furnishings and handloom industry. And then we have Hammer over there. So Hammer is a small company compared to the others like Noise or Boat. This was not I met about a couple of years back, and there were three entrepreneurs I had met at the same time. There was Hammer, there was Nitin Gopinath with a yet unnamed company, and there was a company called Brahmansh. So they were all into very similar products. Hammer was into in-your-ear earbuds, which were slightly different in terms of they fitted very well. They were using a different material, so it fitted very well. If you're playing football, if you're in the gym, there's a chance that it will fall out. So the product they had, it was not falling out. Brahmansh was into what is called a bone conduction device. So what does a bone conduction do? You might have seen it in a couple of sports events. So you don't need to put an earphone. So what you do is you put it on your wrist or you put it on your finger, and then you just put your hand on the bone over here, just under your ear. And it will send the vibrations to your ear, and you actually don't need anything in or around your ear. It is just over here, and you can hear all that is being said. So it is a slightly different kind of a hearing aid that we have over here, and it is very, very suitable for people with hearing disabilities. Also, it is something that can be used quite well with those that are that do not want a completely immersive hearing experience. They just want something on the side. The third company, Nitin Gopinath, was actually using alpha waves, which come from your brain, to gauge and even change the mood by giving appropriate music to it. Great. So what happened over here? Another 2 years back, Hammer launched. The other two did not launch. So what has happened? Hammer today has a turnover which is in several crores, upwards of 10 crores per annum, and just within 2 years. And Nitin Gopinath is still trying to perfect his product. Brahmansh, when I met them, they had actually won the national hackathon, but right now they still don't have the product in the market. So this is something that they have to live with. Trying to perfect the product and come out with this great product is not going to be helpful. You have to go with whatever you think is good enough for the market and go ahead. But please don't make the other side of the mistake. I had another friend who launched a site called Swaggler, and that was into reviews for specific products around lifestyle. It was a blogging site, it was a review site, a lot of people were posting. And one day I got a call from him that if I don't get funded within the next 1 month, I'm probably not going to survive. I said, how did it come to this? I mean, you should have predicted that you need funding. He said, no, I just jumped in. I didn't have much of a plan, and I have come to the end of the financial resources that I have. Anyway, the first thing that I want you to know is that when people are funding you, they are not doing a social service to you. They are funding you because they expect some money back. So if you say that if I don't get funding, then my entire business is collapsing, then people are as worried about the new firm. Now they'll be even more worried. So nobody is going to give you money once you say that. That is one. Second is, don't jump in too early. Don't jump in without any plan. When we talk about MVP, when we talk about coming in early and trying to be lean and trying to look at design thinking, it doesn't mean that you start doing without thinking. It means that you have given it enough thought and you think that this is the minimum that you should be doing for the customer to accept you in a sustainable manner so that you can actually stay around for a long time. And then only you go ahead with that. So be careful about it. Just don't jump in without any excuse. So that's a sure way of failing. So what kind of metrics are we looking at? Awareness first. If I want to gauge the traction of somebody, I'll say that how many people come to your website? How many likes do you have on Facebook? How many people engage with you on Insta? So these are the kind of questions that I will ask. How many people know of your existence on this planet? Just when I talked with you, many of you would have heard about Boat. Some of you would have heard about Bolt. Not too many people would have heard about Hammer. So Hammer had got a lot to go in terms of awareness. And so these are things that you have to think about. How aware is your target market of you? That is one of the metrics that we will go with. Second is engagement. It's not just being aware of you. Are they responding to you in some manner? Do they seem to be interested in your product? Do they go to your website and check out the features? Do they stay for any substantial time on your website? Are they actually considering buying you in some way? Then, of course, the ultimate taste of what exactly your traction is in the sales figure that you have. How much have you sold? What is your turnover? How many products have you moved from your warehouse? That's an actual metric that is of any importance. There are variations to this also. I can just look at the sales, or I can look at what has been the repeat sales. I love to look at repeat sales. Any product that makes sense to have a repeat look at. So, for example, if you're going to sell Golgappas or Pani Puri or whatever they're called, you don't want to know how many customers you have. You want to know how many customers return to the same place. Because those kind of businesses are not built by getting new customers every day. Those kind of businesses are built by getting the same customers into the shop day in and day out. You want to have people who probably eat Pani Puri once in a week at your shop. That's the kind of customer profile that you're actually looking at. So the kind of feedback that I'm really interested in is your repeat customers. Also, I would like to know what are they saying about you in your feedback. There's something called NPS, which I like companies to track, which is the Net Promoter Score. So broadly, it is nothing much. You have a 11-point scale from 0 to 10. And the question you ask is, how likely are you to tell somebody else that this is a good product and you should buy it? So if you are very likely, you say 10. If you are very unlikely, then you say 0. And all the figures which are 8, 9, and 10 are considered to be a major yes. Any figure which is a 7 and a 6 and a 5 is supposed to be neutral. and 4 and below are supposed to be a negative 1. So you take the total number of 8, 9, and 10s and subtract that from the 0 to 4, the number of 0 to 4 that you have. And the net number, you look at the percentage of people who that represents. So if you have a net promoter score of something around 30%, you're fine. And if you have a net promoter score of something around 70%, there's something very wrong with your product. Don't have such a high score. Either somebody is lying to you or you are underachieving with your products. Seriously, very seriously. Some of the best companies in the world also do not get it. Apple has a net promoter score which is a little north of 70%. Okay, now let me get into you trying to scale and become big. What exactly is your role? As an entrepreneur, your is no longer the role of somebody who is going to start an enterprise, big enterprise, and work on the idea, try to come up with this fancy new product. That is not it. Your role becomes different. Your role becomes that of an institution builder. And that role I can probably look at in 5 different things that you're going to be doing. You continue being the chief person who is going to be formulating the strategy for the organization. You are going to be the one that makes the strategy for the organization. You determine what is the strategic direction that your organization is going towards. The second one is the big one. This is where you actually do. So this is execution. What are you doing? What is the organization doing? You have to closely monitor the fact that things are getting done. That quickly brings me to the third one, is the process setting part of it. What this means is the organization is doing things in the manner in which it should be done. It is being done in the right way. Fourth, this is something I often tell entrepreneurs that if you're trying to do everything on your own, you're doing a very wrong job. You have to get a set of other people who are going to be there. As a senior entrepreneur, you have to lead your team. You have to make sure that you are delegating enough things for them to have independence in doing. And then you have to coach and mentor them also in how exactly they have to do what they're doing. The fifth and most another important part over here is the relationship building. If you're trying to sell, you can say Golgappas on the street, you have to build relationships with the nearby residents. You have to build relationship with the other street vendors around so that you are able to share in the resources, help each other at times of need. You have to build relationship with the police wala for very obvious reasons. You have to build relations with the municipality authorities. So all these relationships have to be built. So that is the other thing that you have to do as an entrepreneur. So these are the 5 roles that you have as an entrepreneur. I would like to remind you that any strategy that you are formulating is good, but it's good only for the books. It is just a hypothesis. That hypothesis is going to be tested as soon as you execute the plan. So the execution is where the key is. Just want to give you some idea about the challenges that the world is facing when it comes to execution. I want to give you enough time for questions, so I'll quickly run through some of the slides that come later. But one thing is, Ram Charan is probably right now one of the most famous Indian management thinkers. So he and Jeffrey had come up with a research-based statement that 70% of the strategies fail to achieve the desired results, out of which 30% fail to achieve anything at all. So it is a strategy. There's absolutely been no execution at all. There's a survey by The Economist of 276 firms. 57% of which said that they were successful in executing the strategy. Now we come to China. China is considered to be this country which is great in execution. They're doing a lot of things. But 17% is the total who believe that we have a consistent strategy execution process. So that also means that we have 83% believe that they don't have it in the company. So you can see how important and how challenging it is to have a system which is able to execute. Okay. Other thing is, let's get into some of the principles of execution as far as leadership is concerned. Some of the principles that we have is, one, you should be clear about what needs to be implemented. What are the goals of the organization? That is something that you have to have a very deep clarity on. Second, not only you, but other members of your team should have a commitment towards the goal. That comes only when you are able to pass the clarity to them. And then, of course, they have to know what needs to be done to move forward in the goal. Now, when it comes to enabling sponsorship, that is the role of the entrepreneur, because you are always working with the team. And the team is going to be scared that they're going to make mistakes. You have to tell them that it is fine to make mistakes. Execution always is rife with mistakes. There are going to be mistakes. Make sure that you have enough tools with you to ensure that too many mistakes don't happen, but don't expect that it's going to be a zero mistake scenario. We are past that era where zero mistakes is actually a good thing. There are going to be mistakes if you are stretching. Synergies, again, that's an important thing. If, again, I think of entrepreneurship as a team game, and there have to be synergies between both internal team members as well as with organizations outside. Most importantly, we are looking at accountability of a very high nature. You have to figure out what is it that is being tracked, and the rest of the group also has to know that that is what is important. Management by objectives is fine, but those objectives have to be translated into measurable goals. And only then can you move forward in the desired direction. So there are 4 things that execution leadership actually does. And as entrepreneurs, you have to be execution leaders. Do not focus on everything at all. Be clear of a few high priority goals and only work towards them. Ignore other things to a very large extent as much as possible. Second is you have to create good scoreboards. Where are you headed? Are you headed in the right direction? One of the interesting things you can do is early on in the game, when you have small little wins, celebrate those. Share it with the team and celebrate those. The first deal that you end up cracking, or let us say the first particular first few successes that you have had, the first deal being cracked, the first tender being submitted, those kind of things. So you celebrate that. Lead measures is a very interesting concept. So when do you measure the financial success of an organization? In March, right? End of the year. By that time, it is usually too late to do something about it. So have lead measures. So for example, when I talked about the kind of traction metrics you should have, awareness. If the awareness is low, it's very unlikely that you're going to get a very high level of sales. So awareness is actually one of the lead measures you can actually have. It tells you much before the sales has actually happened, what is likely to be the sales. There are very industry standard levels of conversion. So if you have very low awareness, then you are likely to have lower sales also. So work on which are these lead measures that you have to look at. Accountability is important. That doesn't mean you have to victimize people, those who have failed or those who have failed to live up to the standards which have been set. But let there be accountability. Let somebody get up and say that this is something that I had to do and I could not do it. So I am at fault. I'll try to rectify it. And you should have the culture in a startup that, okay, fine, you made a mistake, that is fine. We make a lot of mistakes. Let's not repeat mistakes. That's the only thing that we should worry about. Okay, leadership skills. There are a lot of leadership skills. I'll just rush through it. Some of the important ones. Here is the ability to delegate. Important over here is the ability to make sure everybody understands the importance of what we are doing. So the goals and the strategies should be something that can be very easily communicated. And also is important is the prioritization. I think prioritization is one of the major things which a lot of entrepreneurs fall short on. Some of the things that you have to do when you are implementing, some of the mindsets that you have. So there's this term which is used very rarely, but it's been quite used now. It is pre-mortem as opposed to a post-mortem. It is before you start something, you think about what can go wrong. Right? what is the thing which is most likely to go wrong? Once you have thought it through, usually you are right about it. What can go most wrong? The top 3 answers, one of those is going to happen. So think it through initially. Okay, I'm going to come out with this new product which is going to challenge the dominance of Reliance. What can go wrong? So you say that, okay, no shopkeeper is going to accept it. Second, I'm not going to be able to keep down the costs. And third, I'm probably not going to have enough money to last with this product for more than a year. So you develop those mitigation strategies for these 3 problems even before you have launched. That is the crux to this. So the problems will happen, likely to end up happening also. So upfront contingency planning is something that you have to do right then. Sometimes you will figure out that you were absolutely wrong with your assumptions. The product that you wanted to sell in the market is not going to do very well. So you have to kill the initiative quickly. You have to kill the products. Let's move out of it. Let's not try to run this. So the pruning proactively is, again, a very important step that you have to do. Okay. Now, other thing is resisting the allure of glamour. Glamour is not exactly in Bollywood, but glamour can come in very different ways also. I've seen some startups who say that, I want to be a boss. I'm going to be a boss only when I hire somebody. And that's the only reason they hire somebody. Otherwise, they can actually get the work done by part-timers, freelancers, interns, but they won't do that. They want somebody on a full-time basis. So that is where same disease goes on a little further. Then at some point of time, they will say that, no, I just want to hire somebody from an idea. Doesn't work that way. I mean, it's just a glamour stat. It's not going to help you. Same, I put the same business over here. In the case of Hammer, just because you have Noise, who has pretty nice brand ambassador, I think Jasprit Bumrah is the brand ambassador for Noise. For Boat, you have brand ambassadors who are like Hardik Pandya, who are like Shreya Iyer. So Hammer also felt the need to have a brand ambassador. They started talking to a few cricketers, and my advice was, doesn't make any sense. Why do you want to waste the money right now? And if you want brand ambassadors, go for those which probably might not be too expensive. Spread it around, spread it to 10 different people. This helps. And sometimes, again, I gave a certain kind of advice. And if you want to be a good implementer, you have to get both sides of the story. I'll give you an interesting example. Lenskart is probably one of the better known startups in India right now. And you'll be surprised to know that that was not initially the business that they started off on. They had actually started off with a variety of other online services. They had hired a bunch of interns. One of the interns, really, they didn't have any use for that intern. And I said, okay, fine, think of a new business and tell me what might be the right business to start off. So he dreamt up this idea of what is now Lenskart, that is selling lenses online. And there was this proposal was submitted, and there were a bunch of people who had the senior management said, this is a useless idea. This is not going to work at all. But then the entrepreneurial team decided, let's just hear out this guy. Let's just hear what he has to say in terms of the market potential and everything. The intern made a very compelling value proposition as to why it has to be taken forward. And finally, it was so successful that they stopped the other lines of business, and this is the only line of business that they are going to carry through with it. Again, the last bit about being objective about your budgets. So be aware of how much money you have in hand. If you do not have adequate money, don't try to stretch on that front at least. Stretch on the number in a day, but don't stretch on the money. That is always to probably put you in more trouble than you realize. Okay, got some names of some startups over here. Nice looking names, right? All of these are very famous startups. What is common to these? Can you think of something which is common to these? Any of your answers, you can put it in the chat box. Nothing? Doesn't strike you? All are text-based. Kruti, that's right. Mayank says founders have started working in top companies before starting up. Charvi, they provide platform for two parties. Quite a few are platforms, yes. Cloudera is not, others are. They help people connect with each other to a very large extent. Yes, you are right. All are digital, connecting internet. Yes, Milan. Yes, Aditya, Dhruv. All of you are right on various fronts. But I'll tell you a very interesting thing. All of these were started at the time of the financial crisis of 2008. Right? In 2008, when everybody was scared about where business is headed, these are the times when these companies actually got started and they have got tremendous traction. In fact, all of the companies mentioned over here are currently unicorns. So, what I want to say is that at times of stress, it doesn't mean that you have to shut down and completely not think about new businesses. It actually might be a good time to start up. So, this is an opportunity time. This is not a time where you should actually shrink and try to save yourself. Let me come to scaling and what I mean by scaling. Scaling is obviously when you decide that you have gone to the market, done your testing, you have been successful in a small little place, and now you decide that you have to figure out a way to move into larger markets. Sometimes you figure that you are not able to move out, but that is something that you have to sit down and figure whether that can happen or not. There are three things you have to look at when you are scaling. First is the processes. You have to figure out how much of your processes can be automated and replicated. That is the important thing. You have to have very few moving parts, things that you have to change and do differently because you have gone to a new country. If you look at McDonald's has been so impressive in the way they have actually gone across the world. Is they have standardized a lot of things. They've standardized the manner in which they do the branding. They've standardized the design of the shops. They've standardized the workflow in the kitchen itself. They've standardized the taste of most of the products. Very rarely, and specifically I think in India is where they have done a lot, is when they have to standardize the menu. But that is, they have to change the menu. But even that at a national level, it is all standardized. What you eat at a McDonald's in Mumbai is probably going to be very similar to what you eat at the McDonald's in Pune and elsewhere. So it is quite good to see what exactly are the processes that we need to standardize. Next is the people. Every business is a people's business. You have to look at what are great people on board. The appropriate people have to come on board who are able to take charge of the entire process of scaling. Entrepreneurship is not an individual business. You have to build a team. You have to make sure that there is a lot of there are a lot of people who can take up the slack. I'll go to the extent, and I know it doesn't sound good. You have to ensure that if you go on a holiday for 1 year, your company is not going to get affected. That is how strong you have to build your company. Now, also, you probably have to make sure that even if you die, it doesn't affect your company. Or if you are somebody like Vijay Mallya, if you run away from your country, your company is still not affected. So you have to make sure that the people are strong enough for that. Finally, the product. There are many people who come with a single great product. A single product doesn't make a company. Have you heard about Billabong, the company? So Billabong is actually a clothing brand. Yes, Samarth. So it's a clothing brand. They came out with a single product. So what was the single product? They were into surfing. The two founders were into surfing. So in surfing, the force of the waves is a lot. And what it used to do is it used to destroy the only item of clothing they were wearing, which is the swimming trunks or the shorts. So it used to get ripped apart very often, and it's not good for the modesty. So they had to find out a solution to this. So what they did was they triple stitched it. They had a very strong seam and they triple stitched it. And that was the innovation which they went, and they had this new product, which was a triple stitched swimming trunks, which are specifically meant for surfers. That was the beginning of the firm. Within 10-15 years, they had actually moved to t-shirts, sunglasses, caps, shorts of various forms, sandals, belts, a lot of other things. They became the largest brand when it came to beachwear and all kinds of beachwear. It was a brand which was selling in billions of dollars at a point of time. So that is how you grow a brand. You have to make sure that what are the products that you're going to expand into. A single product is not going to take you very far. Even a company like Google, which was the leading search engine in the world, they had to come up with a lot of other products. They had to come up with a Gmail. They had to come up with the entire Google suite of products that we have right now. And Alphabet as a company, you will be very surprised to know the single largest investment they make is now in biotech. They are getting, they understand the impact that biotech is going to have over the next 50 years. So they're investing very heavily on it. They have invested in self-driving cars. They have invested in drones. They have invested in AI. They have a lot of robots. And you would have heard about the Droom project where they have satellites floating all over the world at various points. Now, of course, it's come down a little bit where they are giving internet connectivity itself. So everybody has had to expand the range of products. It's not something you do early, but it's something that you do when it is time to scale. Bonus topic. At the end of it, I want to talk about something called failure. We Indians are very peculiar. We are very unforgiving of failure. We make fun of people who fall off a horse. We make fun of people who have failed in business. Actually, unfair. I won't say that it is we Indians. It is we as humans are very, very unkind towards failure. Let me give you some examples from outside the human world. Use tigers, right? Running after deer. Not every time the tiger runs after the deer do they catch the deer. If you have seen videos of cheetahs trying to catch impalas and antelopes, you would see that they fail most of the time. Maybe 2/3 or 3/4, maybe just a quarter of time they actually end up getting the prey. You don't see a bunch of cheetahs laughing at another cheetah because he failed to catch the impala or the antelope of the day. That does not happen. Failure. I want to quote one particular startup over here. The name is Style Country. Style Country is something which was started by Abhinav Chaudhary in the year 1999, and it failed within 9 months. It was a massive failure. He was not able to get back a single penny of the money that he has invested. And it hit him so hard that for the next 10 years, he decided never to become an entrepreneur again. But after 10 years, he started yet one more company. And that company was a company called, of course, now you know it as Big Basket. Abhinav Chaudhary is one of the promoters of Big Basket, and he failed in his first firm. Abhinav Chaudhary, in fact, was my hostel mate. And we felt bad for him when he failed his first firm, which was Style Country. And we thought that he may not be able to recover. Similarly, most of the other successful entrepreneurs that I know of have failed a few times before they've actually been successful. So failure is not bad, it's part of the process. Okay. So this is what I wanted to tell you about execution, traction, and let me know if you have any questions about this, and I'll take your questions right now.
Sir, I have one question.
So just hold on. I'll first take the one which is by Aditya in the chat box, then I'll come to you. How do we measure failure, or when do we stop putting efforts that's okay, this product is not going to work? I think it's very important for you to realize when to walk away. And it's always a feeling of Zen. You drive, right? Aditya, if you drive, you'll realize that sometimes when you're overtaking, you have to understand when exactly you have to overtake. It's something that comes from being there in that particular place. So if you're changing a lane, for example, whether there's enough space or not is something that you learn from experience or something that you learn intuitively when you have been around that space. Now, my bias over here is, let us say everything is falling apart, things are going wrong, and you decide that now probably it's not going to work out. And you have been a company which has been operating for, let us say, 1 year or 1.5 years by that time. So my thought would be, give it 2 more quarters, 2 more periods of 3 months, and then decide whether you want to go ahead. That is the thumb rule that I would go with, which seemed to have worked a lot with them. Now, what else you can do is, if you really think that things are extremely bad and this manner of doing things is not going to work, find out why it is not working and try to see if there's one thing you want to change. Don't dump the business as a whole. See if you can do it differently and change it around.
Makes sense. Thank you so much.
I had an audio question. Thank you, Aditya. Mayank, what strategies, ways can be used to create compelling and motivating scoreboards? There is one good way to make sure that there is a scoreboard. The scores should not be unreachable. These should be attainable scores. So don't start a scoreboard which says that, okay, I'm a company, I've started about in the month. Once we reach 1 crore as our turnover, I'll put a tick over here and I'll keep on putting a tick for every crore of turnover. Don't make it difficult. Make it something which is easy. So the first sale that we have, we'll put a tick. The number of sales we have, we'll put a tick. And we'll probably put a star if you get 10 sales. And the 10 sales might represent, let's say, a few thousand rupees worth of turnover also. So that keeps them motivated also. And also understand that don't try to make it too competitive. Let's say you have 3 people who are looking after sales in your organization. Don't run a competition between them in terms of how can they get more sales. Which one is the person who's getting more sales? Run a competition trying to say how they can maximize their sales over what was happening last month. You know, what kind of growth the 3 of them are getting over the entire thing. Competition, they'll take care amongst themselves. If there are 3 guys, they'll compete amongst themselves and they'll take care of it. Don't make it competitive and announce huge bonus for whosoever is the biggest salesman of the month. There should be other criteria. Try to encourage the teamwork in the early days. Competition comes naturally to humans. You don't have to encourage it. It comes. How motivation in an existing firm or a company is different from a new startup, and how can we keep our workers motivated? So there are 2 things to it. One is, as far as the entrepreneur is concerned, motivation levels are very high in the early days. There's a level of uncertainty. There's a level of demand on your skills and your aptitude, which is very high when you're looking at a startup in the early days. So that works very well. That keeps entrepreneurs motivated. The next question over here is when we talk about motivation of the employees, you have to be very careful on why you're motivating them and how you're motivating them. There's a company I work with, which is RAS. RAS Essentials is into natural cosmetics, and they compete with the likes of Kama, they compete with the likes of Forest Essentials. Each of the employee believes that it is not just the profits that they're after. They are creating a company and a range of products which is going to revolutionize the industry. So the employees are going to be motivated by the fact that they are going to create impact. That is one. Second is, they should get a motivation that they also are going to be able to participate in the success of the industry. So one is very obvious. The employees over there know that if this company is successful, tomorrow their worth in the market is going to be more. If they go for employment to another company, they would be able to sell the fact that they worked with RAS when it was having a turnover of less than 1 crore, and they left it when it was having a turnover of 100 crores. So they know how to grow a company very well. That's going to be a very valuable skill in the market, which they end up selling. So that is how you're going to motivate the employees. Just sheer money is probably not going to be a big motivator. Many people will talk about ESOPs, and ESOPs is a very good way of motivating people, that is employee stock options, but it should be used very carefully. Don't give ESOPs to somebody who is not doing an activity which others can't do. So give it only to those corollaries, give it only to those who are engaged in activities which you will find it difficult to replace them. So that is the criteria for giving ESOPs to people.
Okay, thank you, sir.
There's another question. Thank you, Udit. There's another question over here. How to penetrate in the specialized product market where some companies are dominating? I'll give you an example. Have you heard about a brand called FootJoy? FootJoy. Nope. Okay. Another brand. Do you know of a brand called Stag? And I'm not saying Royal Stag. You are from Gujarat, you shouldn't know what Royal Stag is all about. So Stag. Any of you have heard about that brand? No. I would have thought this is an easy brand to catch on. So if any of you play table tennis, you would have seen that the table tennis board is likely to be Stag, right? So in India, 50% of the table tennis boards are Stag. They dominate the market. They completely dominate the market. Stag boards, the company Stag gets 50% of its revenues from selling T-shirts and shorts and shoes. So where do they sell it? They go to TT players and they sell it directly. You can't find it in the Reliance store or the Reliance trend. You'll go and you'll find it in some TT tournament. They'll come with a cardboard box, put it over there, and TT players will very happily buy it. FootJoy, the other brand I told you about, is actually a golf shoe. They dominate the market of golf shoes. And these are two brands which Nike was trying to actually attack. In India, Nike thought that table tennis is a very attractive market. They had come up with the dry fit clothes and they wanted to attack the TT market. The people just did not listen. They didn't want to wear Nike. They wanted to wear Stag t-shirts and play. They said that, come on, this is our identity as a TT player. We want to wear Stag t-shirts. We are not. They didn't allow Nike to sponsor the national championships. It was Stag which continued as the sponsor. In fact, when there was Dream Sports, which became a sponsor later, still they could not remove Stag because it was in the players' request that Stag was kept as a sponsor. That is the kind of strong branding they have. Similarly, in the case of FootJoy, Nike tried to displace them for a period of about 15 years. In the end, they could not even make a dent in that market. They just gave up and they stopped making golf shoes after that. So this is how strong these companies are in those markets. And what is it that makes them strong? They know the market in and out. They make products which are specialized for that particular market. They have people who are from that particular market, and that is how they know the brand very well. So you have to specialize in a very, very small, very well-defined market, and that is how you can actually counter the big brands. That is the way to do it. Brian has written something. He has seen a single unit business selling products online, like Jumia in Amazon. Think of this: if there was an online market that can give every single online shop a chance to sell in the online market, can this be viable? It can be viable. I think Amazon is a business idea which is going to face a lot of challenges. They're big enough to be able to meet those challenges. So I'm not saying that Amazon is going to go away from the market, but they have to seriously change the way in which they operate in the market. Do you know of a company called Shopify? It's a Canadian company. Shopify dominates e-commerce in a manner that even Amazon has not been able to do so. Most of the e-commerce stores that you see which are not on Amazon are usually on the platform which is Shopify. It is a package that you use to create your own e-commerce store. So they are very strong over there. Now, another technology which is coming up and is probably likely to dominate e-commerce, and nobody has actually figured out how well to use it, is the entire thing around blockchain. And I'm not talking about payments. I'm talking about product tracking. I'm talking about logistics. That is where blockchain is going to be very useful. There are no stores which are currently in scale and are employing blockchain as a strategy to make online transactions, online logistics more secure. But this is the future. Within a couple of years, you'll see a lot of companies are going to end up doing this. So I'm very sure that you have a lot of companies which are going to have a single unit selling, and they're going to be extremely viable. For example, look at Nykaa. Nykaa is one of the successes that has come up only in the last few years, and they're very limited in what they're trying to sell and have been largely successful. So I see that as a trend that can catch on and catch on very well. Okay. EdTech sector is a sector that I was very involved in, Akansha. So I'll just read out this question for everybody. You are in the market validation phase of our gaming education app. Can you share some of the best practices on marketing strategies? Okay, Brad. So I'll give you my biases. I'm a very biased person, so I'll give you all my biases over here. EdTech is a sector which is being dominated by people with unfair practices. I won't name the companies because if I name the companies, they might throw me off social media. So I'll not name those companies over here. But it is dominated by companies which have very unfair practices. That is at one end. The other end is the EdTech market is dominated by a class of customers who are probably the stingiest on this planet. I'm talking about educational institutions. Educational institutions are not going to spend at all. If you have a gaming app which is going to be sold to educational institutions, whether schools, colleges, universities, coaching classes, it's not going to work out. You have to figure out a way of going directly to the customer and trying to sell to them. And here I have another social message over here. There are a lot of people who have created products which are actually not useful, and research has shown that they are not useful. You might charge 30,000 rupees for a year's package of online coaching, but the online coaching so far, nobody has actually shown any use of it. If you're actually going and following some YouTube videos or you're going for the free options, those are as effective as any paid online coaching program you have. And things like coding, you can't actually teach a 7-year-old, whether you're doing online, unless you actually have a straw to his brain and you feed coding directly, there's no way you can actually teach coding to a 7-year-old kid. They're pretending that they're teaching coding. So you have to make sure that you are delivering value. Don't get caught out in a position where the parent does not perceive that you have enough value. So the only way you can test it is show your product to a bunch of people and see whether they are perceiving the enough value after having used it, not just your product statement. Get them to use it. And nobody's going to copy your product. There are enough people out there. There are enough working versions of gaming apps right now, of online educational gaming right now. So nobody's going to copy the product. Make sure you're giving enough value and don't sell to the educational institutions. Just two things. Anything else? Anytime, Akansha. Okay.
Hi, sir. I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So basically, you talked about the traction of a startup which has a product to sell or a service to sell, basically, and also you talked about that investor will ask upon the things like how much revenue have you generated and things, but the like suppose we have to start a startup which is entirely based upon an app and which is essentially for free, the most part of it. So like how to put up things which might attract investors, and do these kind of apps really get invested on?
Okay, I'll give you two answers over here. You see, if you would have come in 2011, then probably somebody would have invested in an app which is free and early. But right now, very difficult to get that invested in. I'll give you an example of a social media app, very much like a WhatsApp, but it was an intra-company WhatsApp kind of a thing. So they have a lot of added features, and I think it's a good product. But unless you have a way of monetizing it and a manner in which you can make money day after tomorrow, then it's very difficult to get it actually funded. So it's a very rare case that you're going to get it funded if you are not somebody with a product which can be immediately monetized, right? So you have to be careful about that. Now, just about 15 days back, there was a company which said that I have a product, I think it has potential. I don't even know how I'm going to make money, but I think the product has potential. And actually, they got funded about it. So a friend of mine just funded it, got in touch with me because they know that I have this idea that please don't fund if you don't see the money. I mean, you have to see the company making money till you fund it. But in this case, I made an exception. I said, if you are feeling like taking the risk, I think you should go ahead. First of all, it was not a big amount. It was a small amount, so that is fine. Second, the product, what it was actually a engine for generating test prep, for those who are giving class 10 and class 12 examinations. And he was going to put it entirely free over there. So what I thought is it's very much like an unacademy right now. And nobody has actually done this over here. The test prep, very, very well made test prep for classes 5 to 10. I thought it's a great product, but the person making this and the person funding this both know, unless he has 1 million involved customers, there is no way they can even start thinking about making money on this. So that's a risk that they are willing to take. But such things are extremely rare. You're not going to get it. In this case, there was a social cause over here also. He thought that if there are so many answers up there, it is going to even up the playing field. A lot of people are going to probably end up gaining from this. So as a social investment, he made it. And if he makes money out of it, it's a plus for him. But you're going to find very few such deals over here. There were about 1,300 angel-funded deals in India last year. Out of the 1,300, there were less than 50 which were pre-revenue companies. So I can tell you, so you can imagine how rare it is for you to get funded if you are a pre-revenue company.
Also, sir, one more thing that I wanted to ask that what do you see the success ratio as, like in a startup which is improving the current scenario, or in a startup taking the example of Xbox adaptive controller, which opens an entirely new domain to the segment. So, what kind of startups see more success? Those ones who improve upon it, or those ones who open an entirely new domain?
I think again, here, I'll probably not make a distinction. I think it is a manner in which you do it than what you're doing that becomes important. But I'll give you some overall figures which will help you figure out the chances of success. Something like 4% of the startups in India survive for 5 years. Something like 1% of the startups in India get a round of angel funding. But after that, it gets better. So out of the people who get angel funding, 25% get a Series A. Out of those people who get a Series A, 50% get a Series B. So it gets better once you have the traction. But whether you have the traction or not is a little difficult to say. And it's not a function of what exactly you're planning, it's how well you're doing it. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I guess there are no more questions, and there's nothing in the chat box as well. So,
sure.
Okay. To conclude, thank you so much, Rajeev sir. It was a really insightful and a good session, and I hope it will help, especially our MBA batches, because they're just going to get into the market, whether with their own venture or joining some other venture, so helping them in some or the other way. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, SPM. Thank you, Kaushal sir, for helping us organize this session. And once again, thank you, Rajeev sir. It was good having you.
Thank you, Drashti. It was a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for attending this. I know, I mean, we are already 9 months into COVID, so most people are very tired of hearing Zoom lectures, and some people are also tired of giving Zoom lectures. But as long as there's an interesting audience, I think all is fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here.
It was a wonderful session. Thank you, Professor Rajeev. So,
thank you, Dr. Kaushal. It was really nice to be here.
Thank you, Drashti. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.